Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we will be discussing how to configure WSO2 API Manager as a gateway where we can access an external endpoint through WSO2 API Manager. So to do that, I have my WSO2 API Manager running it on my local machine. So if you see, this is the API Manager login screen. This is as a publisher screen. So what you can do is here there is a placeholder for creating a new API. So go and pick up the, let's say in my case I will be configuring a REST API, a sample REST API. So design a new REST API. You can give any name as you wish, and this context path is something which you would be using as a path to access this particular gateway URL. So let's say I will provide it as test. You can provide any version. For now we can keep it as 100, so there isn't anything which for the endpoint you need to have your backend endpoint. So for the demo purpose we can take some sample endpoints on which is available in JSON placeholder typeasset.com. This particular has got a lot of mock endpoints, so I will be using one of these resources available here. So there's a lot of REST services built in here, so we can use one of it. It could be our own REST services as well. So this gives a 200 OK response. So there is an option to select the business plan. So whatever you want. For now I'm selecting an unlimited plan so that any number of times. So then go ahead and create this. This will create an API. The name of it is now the training API and the version is 100. The next tab is for the design configuration. Here you can customize quite a few things. You can give your own custom icon. You can choose various patterns, colors, backgrounds, and certain stuff here. So just to identify what your a different API, how to differentiate them and other things. You can give some of these informations. Publisher access control, you can restrict them by role or you can allow them, and visibility is public and you can also restrict it. You can tag this API and also like you can categorize them and all that stuff. So let's keep it default as much as possible for now. The next tab is the configuration. So here if you see we can enable the transport level security. At this point in time this is having both HTTP and HTTPS. Let's say we don't want to expose this as an HTTP, we just need an HTTPS, just uncheck this. And also like the application level security, OAuth2 is something which we'll be using for this demo purpose, but you got like various other things available. Cost configuration, schema validation, message mediation, and also like you can also do this response caching. So let's say if you want to enable it, like you don't want to access the service all the time, so you want it to cache maybe for a few seconds. So if somebody is coming back with the same request, so we don't want to go and hit the server to get the response back, we can have it cached at a certain instance and give the response back. This is very helpful when you are probably showing up the same response if there is no any updation at the back end. So in that case you can go ahead and enable it. Okay, so keeping this in mind, so we can go ahead with the further stuff. On the resources section, there are already a pre-built resources, so I'm going to delete them because these are some things which it is showing as pre-built resources. So and we will be adding one of this request which is available in the placeholder, which is probably users. So you will see all the users which are available in this. So let me give that context path / users. So once you do that, click on this little plus, so you will see that API is added over here. So you can go ahead and save this. Once you save that, go to the endpoint. So here in the endpoint section, you got an option to enable what type of environment it is. Let's say if this is a production, then just untick this sandbox endpoint. You can also configure load balance, failover configuration, and endpoint configuration and other things. So just leaving them to default. So there is already a subscription selected. You still got a choice to go and make the modifications to whatever you want. So to keep that as a default, you can just leave it like that. So if you come to life cycle, it is still in the created state, so it isn't published yet. So since we have done all the configurations, we can go ahead and publish this API. So once you publish it, so you will see a success message here and also a green arrow saying like it is already published. So there are quite a few things here which are helpful. This will, you can also download a Swagger documentation which you can run across, and also you can add few of these environment local scopes and some business info, and also some documentations and all those things. You can go ahead and add a document and then put your own documentation to your API. So that will be like a handy information if somebody wants to use this API in future. So all that thing you can do. So having said that, this API is already published. So the next will be developer portal to make use of it. So if you go into the developer portal using 9443 developer portal, so this API is already shown up here. If you see it here, this is under an endpoint of test 100, which we gave it as the URL to access. You can create a subscription here. So go and do a subscribe and do a subscribe. So I will say it as trial subscription for now. You can create multiple subscriptions depending on who will be using this application. So we can restrict them to whatever plan. So let's say I want 50 per minute plan for this trial subscription, and add a description if you want, and it will say there is a throttling policy as well, so you can, if you want to enable. So, and the next one is, this is the token endpoint and this is a revoke endpoint. So okay, so this is the place where the token gets generated. So if you give next, then there is already a token generated here. Go ahead and copy this token and do it as finish. So now that the token is already generated and done, so you can go and try out this API. So if you come here, this is saying this is a trial subscription, and then it's a production endpoint. So sorry, it's a sandbox endpoint, so that's fine. So you can also generate a test key here, or you can go ahead and put your own key which you have just generated. So if you see it here, this is 8243 test 100. This is actually your gateway endpoint. So where it goes is, it goes into JSON placeholder when the request is hit. So go ahead here and try it out, execute it. So there you go. So there is a 200 response body which is coming from this particular endpoint on the JSON placeholder, but on a gateway level, it is hitting the endpoint 8243 test 100 and users. Just to prove the theory, you can also run this on any external tool like Postman. So go over here and then copy the endpoint. Let me take it from here. So you need to enable the authorization. So we have the bearer token authorization here. So if you see the bearer token authorization, so then you need to, let's say if you are using some old authorization token and trying to send, then you will say, see this error called authentication failure, unclassified authentication failure. So you need to give proper token. So this is the token which we just used to call the API. So we can take the same token, or you can generate a new token if you want, and then provide the same token here and go ahead and push the request. There you go. So here you will see the response coming out from uh, the backend API through the API gateway. Thank you so much for watching. So if you have any questions, please post in the comment section. I'll be glad to assist you. Thank you.